welcome to Auto News Talk. If you just casually follow the mainstream news, you'd probably think the gasoline engine is, well, totally dead.
Oh, yeah, like a total dinosaur just waiting for the meteor.
Exactly. You'd think every driveway is destined to have an EV plugged in by next year, and that the agonizing process of haggling in a dealership back room is just this unavoidable law of physics.
Right, like it's just how buying a car has to be.
But today on Auto News Talk, we're tracing the money. We're looking at a stack of recent industry reports to figure out what's actually happening in the car market right now. And, what we found completely scrambles that conventional wisdom.
It really is this fascinating contradiction. The narrative we're all fed just doesn't match the reality on the ground, or I guess the reality on the factory floors and the dealership lots.
Yeah, because what if I told you that General Motors just quietly dropped over $1 billion into building brand new V8 gas engines?
Right, while at the exact same time, auto dealers are suddenly testing 4-day work weeks and completely eliminating sales commissions.
It's wild. So today, we're going to set the map for you. We'll start with what consumers are actually doing with their wallets, trace that cash back to the automakers' factory floors, see how it's totally shifting the dealership experience, and then finally look at this invisible digital threat that can bring the whole sprawling industry to a halt.
So let's start with the foundation of all of this, which is the consumer. We have this recent Cox Market brief, and it paints a picture of a remarkably durable buyer. Like, the report projects the April SAAR at a really solid 16.1 million vehicles.
Wait, for anyone who doesn't track industry metrics every day, SAAR is basically the speedometer of the U.S. auto industry, right?
Exactly. It stands for seasonally adjusted annual rate. So a rate of 16.1 million means the industry has a very steady, healthy heartbeat.
Yeah.
Cars are moving despite all the headlines you see about inflation and, high interest rates.
Okay, so what's fueling that momentum?
Well, the Cox report points out a record month-over-month jump in gasoline station sales, which is a really strong proxy for consumer mobility. People are driving, they're out in the world, and crucially, we're in the middle of tax refund season.
Oh, right. The refund checks?
Yeah, those refunds act as this vital financial cushion. It gives buyers the liquid cash they need to put down a solid payment and kind of offset those higher interest rates.
I always think of the auto market right now like a bustling high-end restaurant. Like the prices went up, but people are still packing the tables because they just got their tax refunds. And suddenly, the used menu items are the hot commodities.
Which is actually a perfect transition to the most surprising finding in that Cox report.
The used EVs, right?
Yes. For the last couple of years, the prevailing story was that used electric vehicles just depreciated like stones.
Right.
But the data shows their demand and price retention are actively strengthening.
Wait, really? Strengthen?
Yeah, buyer interest is firming up at both the wholesale level, so the closed auctions where dealers buy their inventory, and at the retail level, which is the actual lot where you or I would go buy a car.
That makes total sense if you look at the life cycle of new tech. The early adopters bought the brand new EVs, and they took that massive, 40% depreciation hit.
Exactly.
So now you have this second wave of buyers stepping in, people who maybe hesitated at $60,000, but they see a lightly used 3-year-old EV for $25,000, and it's suddenly this brilliant commuter car.
And the dealerships are highly aware of this shift. Like, the Cox report highlights their recent acquisition of a company called FullPath, which signals this much broader industry push toward integrated retail tech.
So dealers are buying up data platforms to target that specific second wave EV buyer.
Exactly. They know the demand is there now, so they don't have to rely on those steep profit-killing discounts to move a used EV anymore.
Okay, so consumers have money. They're buying cars at a steady clip, and they're suddenly scooping up used EVs. But if we follow that money upstream to see what the automakers are actually building, well, that's where the story gets incredibly counterintuitive.
Yeah, we're looking at a classic dual-track strategy. And one of our sources details how General Motors is the perfect case study here.
Because every press release for the last 5 years has been about the electric zero-emission future. But this report shows GM is committing $505 million to an Ontario plant specifically to build 6th-generation V8 gasoline engines.
I know, it's a staggering capital investment in internal combustion. But if you look at the financial architecture of the industry, it's really the only way the math works.
Because these new V8s are for the huge trucks, right?
Right. They're slated for GM's core full-size pickups and SUVs. The Silverado, the Tahoe, the Yukon, the Escalade.
The sprawling, highly profitable behemoths.
Exactly. The R&D required to build an entirely new electric supply chain is astronomically expensive. Automakers have to fund that future somehow. And they do it by selling their highest margin combustion vehicles today.
So for a lot of consumers who need like heavy towing capacity or the ability to drive across rural areas without charging anxiety, the combustion engine isn't a luxury, it's just a utility.
Yeah, and GM isn't just spending $500 million in Canada. Another report breaks down how they're pouring an additional $830 million across their U.S. plants just for parts that support these gas engines.
Wait, $830 million just for parts?
Yeah, like Romulus, Michigan is getting $300 million.
Yeah.
Which brings their total to $600 million, specifically to expand capacity for 10-speed transmissions. Toledo, Ohio gets another $40 million for that same 10-speed program.
Why 10 gears, though? I mean, I remember when a 4-speed automatic was standard.
Well, it comes down to regulatory survival. Automakers are facing incredibly strict federal emissions and fuel economy standards. If you're going to keep building massive V8s, you have to extract every fraction of efficiency from the gas.
Right, because an engine only operates at peak efficiency within a specific RPM range.
Exactly. It's optimal power band. So 10-speed transmission gives you so many gear ratios that the engine can almost always stay in that highly efficient sweet spot, whether you're in traffic or on the highway.
Oh, so it's like riding a 21-speed bicycle up a hill instead of a single-speed bike. You can always find that perfect resistance where you're doing the least amount of work.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
The transmission does the heavy lifting, so the engine doesn't have to overexert itself. And speaking of the engine, the source also notes Saginaw, Michigan is getting $150 million to increase headcasting volumes for these Gen 6 V8s.
Headcastings. That sounds like a minor part, but it's really the lungs of the engine, right?
Though it's arguably the most complex piece of metal in the vehicle. It sits on top of the engine block, houses the valves, the spark plugs, the channels where air and fuel mix.
So they're fundamentally redesigning how these engines breathe to make them cleaner.
Exactly. But what the source doesn't answer is the actual technical specs. GM hasn't disclosed the displacement or if they'll be paired with a hybrid system to meet those regulations.
Which is wild. They're building these incredibly engineered machines, but the irony is the actual process of buying one has historically been just a miserable experience.
Oh, the worst. But another source zooms in on the practical side of retail, specifically looking at Walser dealerships and how they are completely tearing that old model down.
Yeah, the traditional retail model relies on grueling hours and high-pressure commissions. It just burns through people.
But Walser implemented a 4-day work week, 4 days on, 3 days off, in a business where working 6 days a week was basically a badge of honor.
That is a profound cultural shift.
It is. It's focused on human sustainability, because one of the biggest friction points is the split deal. A customer comes in, looks at a car, decides to sleep on it. They return the next day, but their salesperson is off.
Oh, I hate that. Then someone new takes over, and suddenly 2 salespeople are fighting over the commission.
Right. But Walser eliminated that by completely removing the traditional commission-based pay model.
Wait, no commission at all?
None. And they didn't stop there. They actually removed the dreaded F&I box.
The finance and insurance office, where you spend another hour being pitched extended warranties after you already negotiated the car price.
Exactly. Now, one salesperson handles the entire transaction.
Okay, I have to push back on this, though. I get why that's amazing for me as a buyer, but the F&I office is notoriously the highest margin square footage in the dealership. If they eliminate that, aren't they just throwing away profit?
Well, your skepticism is totally justified.
Yeah.
The source actually notes that initially, eliminating the F&I office caused their profit per copy, so the profit on a single vehicle, to drop by $400 to $500 below the brand average.
I mean, in a volume business, losing $500 a car is a severe hit. Most managers would panic.
But they held their ground. They implemented really rigorous coaching. And General Manager Erika Tafani noted in the report that her store is currently only about $200 below the brand average and improving.
Wow. And I imagine what they lose in margin, they make up for in volume and retention. Because without commissions, you attract completely different talent.
Yeah, the source gives a great example. A former lot attendant, someone who just washed and parked cars, is now a top 3 performer, selling around 25 cars a month.
That's incredible. And it allows them to focus on inclusive hiring, too. Like, the source highlights the Women of Color Automotive Network, or WKN. They have over 1,000 members now and provide scholarships to build a pipeline to ownership.
Which is such a smart business strategy. Buyers want to purchase from people they relate to. So creating a less toxic environment actually drives up overall demand.
Okay, so we've got automakers building complex V8s and dealers creating human-centric sales floors. But none of this matters if the digital floor falls out from under them.
Oh, this is the invisible threat.
Yeah. We're looking at a financial filing regarding Virtue Motors, a major dealership group. They just secured a £3.4 million net insurance payout.
And the crazy part is, Virtue Motors wasn't even the primary victim. This payout was for business interruption following a cyber attack on their manufacturer partner, Jaguar Land Rover.
Wait, so the manufacturer got hacked and the dealer got the payout?
Yeah, back in September 2025. Dealership systems have to talk to the manufacturer's servers constantly, verifying VINs, authorizing warranties, processing financing. If the manufacturer goes dark, the dealership computers essentially become expensive bricks.
It's like a theme park losing power. You have the best rides, the happiest staff, but if the central system is down, nobody is getting on the roller coaster.
Exactly. So the gross recovery from insurers was £3.9 million minus a £500,000 deductible, leaving Virtue with that $3.4 million net.
And that fundamentally alters their financial narrative. The report indicates this payout is pushing Virtue's adjusted profit ahead of the market consensus of £21.6 million.
It perfectly illustrates how fragile the modern auto retail network is. Your bottom line is totally tethered to the cybersecurity of your supply chain partners.
So we've covered a lot of ground today on Auto News Talk, but when you synthesize all these reports, there are really three distinct themes emerging.
Yeah. First, market resilience. We see that in the strong consumer spending, the tax refunds, and GM's billion-dollar bet on V8s.
Second is retail evolution, seen with Cox's tech acquisitions and Walser tearing down that old high-pressure commission model.
And the third theme is systemic vulnerability, highlighted by Virtue Motors needing a massive insurance payout just to survive a partner's cyber attack.
But there are some glaring tensions here, too. GM is spending $1 billion on combustion engines at the exact same moment the Cox report shows used EV demand is finally strengthening.
Right. And Walser is intentionally absorbing a hit to their margins by removing the F&I box, which totally contradicts the traditional doctrine of squeezing every dollar out of the customer.
So the practical takeaway for you, the listener, is that the auto industry is running this high-stakes dual-track strategy. They're using the profits from gas-powered trucks to fund an uncertain EV future, all while trying to make the actual buying experience less miserable.
It's an industry doing a very delicate balancing act.
It really is. So next time you walk onto a dealership lot, look at the salesperson. Are they a former lot attendant working a 4-day week? And as you look at a brand new V8 parked next to a used EV, just consider that they represent a massive multi-billion-dollar tug of war. But ultimately, what happens when the digital infrastructure running this whole ecosystem faces its next inevitable cyber test? Will insurance payouts be enough to keep the engine turning? Thanks for joining us on this segment of Auto News Talk. Keep that question in mind as you watch the market this week.